Welcome, everybody. It's the Konflux community call. Today is May 7th. We've got 2 points on the agenda, which is in the usual place. Andrew, you're up first whenever you're ready. Go for it.
All right, thanks. All right, so, excuse me. I just wanted to show some work that I've been doing related to this. SLSA has, back in July, we published a request for end-to-end examples where we were saying that we wanted to have information by September 30th last year, but and I was always intending on submitting something for Konflux, but I think the state of how the installation was and a lot of the change that we had around that time, it really made it hard for me to finish this. But I had two presentations earlier this year that related to this as well. So I actually was able to continue to work on this. And I think that I more or less have the content at a state where I feel comfortable submitting this for people to, if people are reading through the blog, that they can install Konflux locally, that they can explore it, they can see how we do SLSA related things. The intention of this was to not just demonstrate the build track, so that's the SLSA build provenance, but also the source track, which some of you might not be familiar with, and then how like policy verification fits in, potentially integrating with, well, it mentions in here about producing verification summary attestations, excuse me, and then there's also some optional steps for, there's a build environment track, which I don't address, but there's a dependency track, which I do address some as well. And the requirements of that are essentially requiring an SBOM, being able to triage vulnerabilities. And so these are all some things that I have demonstrated. I posted this repository. I'm keeping this here for now. But before submitting the blog post, I will move this repository to the Konflux CI organization. And so this has two parts, basically. One is the build and release, which just covers the simple process that many of us are familiar with. And then the part two, and so that's kind of an orientation to Konflux itself. And then the second one goes more into the source track vulnerability management, hermetic builds. So I know that folks are busy. Well, this says it was tested with Konflux CI. I was having a conversation with Iftach the other day, and when I didn't realize it, but we automatically picked up the 0.4 release of the operator. So that's something that I definitely need to change to get the latest version of the operator, which is actually a lower version number. But regardless, this is tested with a tag-based or tag-pinned version of the Konflux CI operator that teams have been working on. And I use Podman Desktop locally as well. And then we have the two, so there's three different documents. One is just a general perspective or general approach to our concept of trusting artifacts, based upon the problem that chains can sign anything. So how do we actually solve that? We verify the tasks and the artifacts. So this kind of goes into a little bit of detail there, because this isn't something that's necessarily intuitive to people who might be coming to the community and exploring this. And then here's the walkthrough for onboarding a component. The biggest gap that I have here is that I'm trying to work on a change to allow us to customize the build pipeline from the Konflux CI operator CRD. That PR is close. And then the second one And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure we can do first before pushing this further. I don't know how many folks know Louis, but he has a project called Festoji, which can just add a fun little emoji, festive emoji, before you can inject into your shell prompt and it changes based on the day. So that's what I use to onboard to show this, and it goes through how to inspect the metadata the metadata for the artifacts that are produced. Tries to go through how to understand what's produced a little bit, viewing the provenance, viewing the SBOM. The integration test, the only thing that we have is the conformer check. And then what happens when it auto releases as well. And then when it auto releases, I have well, I can poke into this a little bit here. I think it's actually in here. There's a managed pipeline that we have, and well, I'll show you. So there's a couple of tasks that I built for this. I have a slightly different verify conformer task because I wanted to expose data from the conforma verification so that I can generate a verification summary attestation for it. So there's just a little bit of difference there. Because Clarence CI doesn't work on ARM and I have an ARM machine, I couldn't use it, so I just wrapped Trivy in a task that follows our same result parameter or result ADR. So these results might look familiar to you. And then I'll just go back to the documentation. And then there I go through how I did it with a second component, and I wanted it to have make it easy for people to clone and use to explore Konflux. This second component is a separate repository that I had that's a little bit more, very slightly a little bit more complex than Festoji because it actually has dependencies. But in this repository that I have here, it's onboarded to there's a tool that we built to generate the SLSA source provenance. And so this is a repository that's been onboarded to it. So when I create commits, push events on the main branch, this GitHub action will actually generate a SLSA source provenance attestation and a SLSA source provenance or a SLSA source VSA as well. And it'll store that in the Git notes. And then we have a task that actually can fetch those attestations and help us to verify it. So that's why there's a separate component. And then there is a vulnerability on this component, whose I think it's a high vulnerability that's reported, and the grace period for that should end in a couple days. So once that grace period ends, we can actually we can use this to verify the source. We can levels. We can use this to show how we can kind of manage the vulnerability lifecycle as well. And yeah, so there's a lot of information here. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I can just show you what I have. So this is, if you haven't seen the Konflux CI operator, or what it builds, this is kind of the default. We do have this, since we use default passwords, we use our banner at the top that says this is for testing, and it has the default insecure passwords. So that's something to hopefully make people aware that, because one of the biggest issues when you're installing software or using technology is default passwords. And so just to try and highlight that that is configured there. So let me just check on this pipeline run. Here's an example of the pipeline. So we still have clone, repository, prefetch dependencies, build container, and then Clariscan I have disabled, but Trivy runs. We just run another check, apply tags, and here's a verify source. Task that we have, this task is in build definitions as well. So it should be, it can be used by other people as well. But we can see here that the salsa source level is 1. That's based on the metadata that's stored in the Git nodes. And yeah, then I can go back to the releases here. Look at the managed pipelines. And so we can see here what happens. We have the verify conformer task. We push a snapshot and then we attach the VSA, and this VSA, it attaches, I think that the conformer generates its own VSA, but then the report JSON that conformer generates is stored in the trust artifact, which this one fetches. And then we use that metadata to determine the salsa build level, the salsa source level. And this just uses a custom signing key. So that's the release overview. But if I go over here, we can see, let me see a build. So this is the one that has the source track enabled. We can see that the VSA has salsa source level 3. And then we can also see, if I look at the releases, I thought some of these releases would have failed, but maybe it was just the conformer check that failed. In this workflow, you can adjust the required salsa source level in the enterprise contract policy, and so you can actually trigger a failure by raising that salsa source level that's required to a level 4. Yeah, so that looks like what this is here. I don't see, it doesn't say what the salsa source level required is in this metadata. It might say in here if I look at the logs. Let me just see if I can find it. Oh, so this must have been, oh, I think what it is because the pull requests, the source track GitHub action only generates the provenance or the source provenance for push events. So this was a pull request, and so we can see that we only have level 1 because it's in a Git source control management, but it's required that it's 3 because we're not actually generating the provenance for it. So it's either that or there's a timing issue there where I changed it in the other one, but in this one we have clone repository that happens directly after that is verified source. So there's some timing issues where the GitHub action might not have completed the provenance generation before the verify source ran. So I've changed it since to be after build container to give that GitHub action time. Yeah, the releases are the same thing here. We have some warnings in this, and this is just due to the CVEs that have been found, and by yeah. So yeah, I wanted to give the update. I'll be looking to create a blog post for this sometime relatively soon. After I get that pull request merged to the Konflux CI operator, so that I can actually customize the build config, the build pipeline config, so that it's much easier for users to onboard with these default pipelines. Because if this is a custom pipeline, this is not like one that we have upstream at all. It's much more simplified, and so I just want to make it as easy as possible. But in the meantime, if you have time, if you want to read through it, if you want to look to see what does make sense, what doesn't make sense, feel free to come here and look at the README and the documentation that I have. A lot of this was generated, assisted by Claude, and so I will, before publishing it, I will go through it myself just to make sure that everything makes sense, that there's no hallucinations, that it's actually possible to take the documentation that I have here and apply it directly to get the walkthrough flow working properly. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Andrew, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
So there are some commits there from Ralph from late last year. He helped me to get mentally unblocked on it by starting down the path of using Helm charts for installing these components and configurations that are needed. But yeah. Yeah.
It's a detail from way back in there, but what happened with the v0.4 release of the operator?
I think that well, the current releases of the operator, well, I'll let Iftach comments and see.
Yeah, this is something from, I don't know, 2 years ago.
Ah.
We're trying to do some proper releases, or to see how it would be to do releases, but it's completely irrelevant to what we're doing right now. Yeah.
I see. It's like something like in the GitHub API is advertising it as a higher version, and do we need to like delist that release from?
Yeah. Yes, probably yes. We are a bit hesitant about it, but yes, we should.
Interesting. I think there's a way, rather than just deleting the release, I think you can mark it as, there's some API options in the GitHub Releases API to like de-emphasize releases from the past. So if you haven't looked, check that out.
All right.
Cool. Again, Andrew, that was awesome. Have you gotten like any feedback you can share from others outside the Konflux community? Because like that's the big target, right? We all work on that system and we know its properties, but to have a kind of like encapsulated bundle that you can share with others to communicate some of the things we're doing, like what have you heard?
So I was talking with some folks. I was able to go to KubeCon in Amsterdam in March, I believe it was, and I was talking to some folks there. I feel like there's definitely some interest in using this, because I think for a lot of people, Jenkins is the de facto tooling that people use, and especially with configuration as code, that you can have your pipelines committed as well. I talked with people in the CNCF tag security and compliance, and they have essentially an open call for demos for like 7 minutes every call. And once I got this blog post up, I would go there and try and demonstrate it and say, go to this blog post for more information, because it is much more detailed information. There's also I was talking with one of the people from I just forgot the name of it, but there's a community that uses bootc, and it's built on top of bootc for an operating system that they build, and they seem to be interested in using something like Konflux as well, because it's all kube native, and there's bootc is not something that's supported by a lot of platforms, a lot of systems, and it's also something, Konflux would be something that you can run locally as well. So if these people are comfortable with within the CNCF, and they're comfortable in cloud native and Kubernetes, having a build system that's just added on top of that is only natural. So my intention is certainly to get this blog post wrapped up and published and whatnot, and then just use it as a conversation starter and send it to some folks to further poke at engagement.
Cool. Awesome. Any questions, comments for Andrew? Andrew, we upload the videos of these recordings to YouTube, in the community all discussions like playlist. What do you think about cross-listing this in the demos playlist?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. If you want, like, if it's possible to just cut out this segment, like, we can do that and post some demos, or I don't know what the other topics are for this community call, but we can certainly, if we feel like it's sufficient, or it's not too much, then we can certainly cross post this in the demos playlist as well.
I'll tell you what, I'll put it on the community calls one, and then if I'll try to hit it with a video editor and see if I can successfully snip out your first section and put it on demos if I can make it happen.
Okay, thanks, Ralph.
If anybody out there is really good with video editing, please let me know, because I will struggle, but I'll do it. Okay, Eric, I think you're up next if I see right on the agenda.
All right. So this is going to be very quick. You might remember my announcement about Konflux being or applying to GSoC, and then that we actually, as an organization, got accepted. So now I'm pleased to announce that Konflux got 3 out of the 4 project slots that we originally filed. So it's an amazing milestone, I would say, given the some of the problems that we may have faced so far on the way due to the abundance of AI tooling. So yeah, I hope that it's going to be an amazing run, that we get some useful work delivered to Konflux for everyone to benefit from. And just to specify which projects those were. So we got 2 projects allocated for Konflux and 1 Hermeto. So the 2 for Konflux were your the DSD translation support and rapid builds in Flux. And for Hermeto, it is the support for the UV Python toolchain as a new backend to Hermeto. So yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Eric.
Thank you.
There's a
thank
lot of
everyone
challenge, a lot of headwinds.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Likewise, Ralph, thanks to you for pitching the ideas and everyone who got involved along the way. Well, we haven't officially started yet, so let's make some celebrations after everything has been delivered successfully. So we are right now in the officially what's denoted as community bonding period. The coding period officially starts at May 25th, I think. And so that's when the magic should happen. So right now we just got students, and I will appreciate all the help that we can get from the community, during I don't know, code reviews or hints. So of course we are responsible as a source to as the primary contact to the students. But if you have, you know, any hints or review comments to what is coming in the next few months, then it's going to be massively appreciated. And then we can celebrate that. It was the first Konflux's GSoC stint, and hopefully it's going to be a good one, a successful one.
Awesome. Andrew.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Eric, and I guess Ralph too, since you had one of the proposals there for GSoC summer of code, if you'd have a retrospective after all this happens, just to get feedback on maybe what good projects are and what good projects are not. If we wanted to do this again, if we want to try and share that knowledge with others that might be thinking about it.
Oh, sure. This is not the first time I'm hearing this, so yeah, I'll definitely take care of that once it's all over and we have all the data that we can talk about.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eric, for shepherding this.
If no other comments or questions on GSoC, well, I guess if there are, route them to Eric in upstream Slack or by email. However, I've got another point I added to the agenda late about FullSend, and it's a bit of a question. FullSend is a project that we launched originally as a repository within the Konflux CI org, but then we moved it out to be its own independent thing. It's all about an agentic SDLC. Can we make an agent-based system that can help us with all the kind of activities around building software and in a way that's compatible with open source projects? We've only been working on it for a month. It's very new. We have enabled it for a small number of Konflux repositories. So those Konflux repositories are like users of FullSend. And I don't know how much like awareness there is of that. Would you all like to see like some examples of what it's doing?
Let's see it, Ralph.
Let's see it. Let me screen share if I can. I would start with this URL, which I'll add it to the agenda notes. You can see it, but like there's this query is, right, here, I'll make it bigger too. It's everything that's a PR, where the author is Konflux CI coder bot. And the way it's working right now is that for FullSend generates different app identities in GitHub for different agents that play different roles in the system. So for the Konflux CI org, we get a bespoke app identity called Konflux CI coder for the agent that's performing coding activities. There are a couple others. There's a triage one and a review one. We expect there'll be even more in the future, but these are the kind of the trio that make up what we have right now for the MVP. So with this query, you can see all the PRs that are, I edited that. How did I? Author colon Konflux CI and is open gives you the list. 9 open right now, 19 closed so far. I saw this one at the beginning of the call, open 2 days ago on the architecture repo from the Konflux CI coder, and there's this interaction between it and Andrew. If we look at the start, and Andrew, correct me if I say anything wrong about going through. You filed an issue 2 days ago on the architecture repo, proposing to improve progressive disclosure for Claude. So it's like restructuring some of the documentation to make it easier for agentic tools to crawl their way through a repo and not get overwhelmed by too much information too fast. Filed it and then ran this /triage command, which is a command to FullSend's triage agent, which then responds here. It says, thanks for opening this issue. It's categorized as a feature request. Request covers 2 main areas. It's trying to understand what's going on, and it labels it as a feature. By default, it won't try to code features. It will only try to code fixes to things that it categorizes as bugs on the assumption that features are more significant, right? They're like adding something to the system, and maybe we don't want to do that. We want to talk about it as humans first before something happens. But bug fixes, we assume, are things that you just want fixed, right? And there's no reason to not to wait until some code shows up for a bug fix. Of course, it can get that wrong, but the goal is to like improve that triage so it's better and better over time at distinguishing between what we would consider a bug fix and what we would consider a feature request. And so Andrew typed /code, which is a command to the coder agent to go ahead and take this off, and he provides a little extra context in his comment. The coder agent picks it up and files the PR we were just looking at. So this is the originating issue. Going back to the PR now, there's this back and forth, right? So it files the initial PR, it launches its own review. The review agent responds, not approving or disapproving. It's found some issues that it wants some feedback on. Andrew comments with /fix that to change some of the details about how it should work. There's a fix agent that runs with the coder agent's identity that responds to Andrew's response, and it goes back and forth. I'm just scrolling down now. Andrew says, complains, criticizes that the agents have too much space in them, and some back and forth, eventually to a point where Andrew's approved, but nobody else has looked at this yet, so I'm not sure if we should, if you need an extra approval here, Andrew, before we do stuff. I haven't actually looked at the diff myself, but I just saw it this morning before the call.
I think the architecture repo needs two diffs or two approvals.
Yeah.
And I posted in the sidebar, not to interrupt you, Ralph, but
yeah.
I think that there's a couple of times when I actually used it to fix a bug in the architecture repo where if you in the rendered content, if you click on the ADRs, the URL was misaligned. So there's another bug that I filed and had it fixed to just insert /architecture before ADR, and it did that fine. And for this one, I was having it was having issue actually seeing the CI failures until the very last message that I posted. I actually copied and pasted the CI failures so that the coder bot could actually respond to that and add the exclusion in the lint check that was required. So I mean, it's only a month old. It's not something that is fully polished, but it's been interesting to try and use to just let things run in the background and not have to worry about them.
Yeah. I can't see hands, so if someone else raised their hand, please speak up.
So that was me, Eric. So looking at this, of course, the human element is supposed to be involved at the beginning, so that's understandable. I'm trying to figure out, this looks like a completely GitHub native workflow. How would one try to replicate or do that deterministically locally?
Yeah.
So you get a review and then you need to react upon it. That means you need to add a comment. I guess you could do that from Claude respond with a /fix comment. So I'm wondering if how that would be deterministically reproducible, or how does that connect to some local development where the human element is involved, but still we get some good agentic workflow.
Yeah, I'm not sure this is a direct answer to your question, so like hold me to it if I miss it, but like two ways. I guess first, the idea is that the agents are working off of the same the same bones of the SDLC as we are, meaning the software delivery lifecycle, software development lifecycle. So it's working off issues in the same way that we would work off issues. So like if an agent is picking up an issue in much the same way we could pick up an issue and code an alternative fix and post an alternative PR without agents in the loop. So like that's one way in which like there's intentionally space for a hybrid a community where agents are playing some role and delivering some fixes and humans are doing others. But then there was this other part of your comment about like, I feel like it was about like, is it about engaging on a fix that is partially delivered by an agent? And so like Andrew was commenting /fix and just letting the kind of hosted GitHub Actions native agent do its work. You could, because this is a branch on the main repo, you could take over this branch, right, and start like adding your own fix commits deliberately locally without having to mess with any agent stuff. You know what I mean? Just like stack up your fix commits, rebase, squash, whatever you need to do, and push to get it in the state you're finally happy with. And then lastly, there's this note about like determinism, right? And I think that comes back to the temperature. There's this parameter you can pass to coding agents to set the temperature. And it's this like seed number that grants a certain, increasing degrees of variability to the agent. And although I haven't tried it myself, I'm curious if anybody else has. Has anybody tried setting the temperature to 0, which I believe is supposed to give you a deterministic output, but I haven't confirmed that.
Okay, on temperature, then I have some good learning to do on my side.
Yeah. Share, please, because I want to know too.
But okay, thank you for that input on the branch fixing. I guess what's resurfacing, like where I'm coming from is I just don't want this to become like it shouldn't become really like a workflow where everyone spams, for example, you're probably aware, /retest, right? The CI fails.
Mm-hmm.
And until the CI is green, the only workflow that we're going to use is just spamming comments and spinning in a loop. So
yeah,
at some point we need to be able to step in and say, okay, this is not going anywhere, and we need some real input.
Yeah. Two things on that. There's a parameter for the review agent that's built in that it will at most do 5 interactions. It like caps itself out at a certain point and then will give up and yield to humans. But if a human insists, please iterate again a 6th, 7th, and 8th time, then it will, right? It's like not going to object to that. So like between bots, it will limit itself. Between humans, the problem is like on us, but it's still like there's we would condition humans to do /fix just as much as they do /retest today and tolerate poor output. So that's one side of things. A second side of things is there's this I mentioned there's 3 core agents: triage, coder, and review. There is like a number of ancillary agents that are kind of outside that core feature set that do new things. And one we just introduced. Like we just started coding it 2 days ago, and we've got it live in the FullSend organization for our own work, but we haven't enabled it for Konflux CI because it's like super new and it probably doesn't work very well yet. We haven't had time to really evaluate how well it works, but it's called the retro agent, the retrospective agent. And its job is to, at the end of an interaction that you think was poor, you can type /retro and say like, why did this take 15 iterations? The fix was obvious, or whatever you want to say. And retro agent's job is to go and look back at all of the interactions, all of the agent logs, all of the chain of thought, strands of the agents, and try to figure out why whatever you're complaining about happened. And its job is then to propose issues in the repository to highlight, if only we had a linter that did this, then the agent would be less likely to make the kind of mistake it did. Or if only the markdowns in the file were restructured in this different way. I hypothesized that the agents wouldn't make the mistake that they made last time. And the hope is that we can use that to kind of iteratively get the system into a better and better position where it'll produce. It's surprising that it produces good outputs today, given that we just started creating this a month ago. But the hope is that we will use a mechanism like this to kind of like increasingly make it more and more fit to the kind of outputs we expect. To have to /retest less. Back to your comment. Well, cool. That is, can I show a couple things about how it works? There's this actions shim. If we look nope, not labeler. Here, FullSend. And when you do things on particular issues, this dispatch job fires, and if any of the agents match, like in this one, the review agent matched, it will run. But this does a really small thing. It does a GH workflow run in a different repository. So we're currently in, I don't know if you can see my URL bar, we're in the architecture repository. Yeah, Konflux CI architecture. But it runs a workflow in Konflux CI.FullSend, where .FullSend is a new repository that is meant for holding the org-wide config for FullSend, so like Konflux CI's config, and holding, and it's the place where like agent like workloads run as GitHub Actions. Here, there's a second dispatch that happens within this repo, and we're missing a link, which is fixed in the latest release, but not yet deployed for Konflux CI. But like if we look at one of these, you can see the agent run here at run review agent, and its activity happens here. So this is all happening in GitHub Actions. At the end of the day, we have an installer that lays down the configuration in Konflux CI.FullSend to wire up the GitHub Actions to run as they do. But our intent is to build other compute trigger and infrastructure backends so that we can launch this in a Kubernetes cluster, likely with Tekton, right? Which is a natural thing to run these kind of short-lived agent jobs that are responding to events. And that's something that we hope to start working on in the next couple months. There's a Tekton enhancement proposal up that I have not reviewed yet that's about looking at adding agent capabilities to Tekton or making Tekton a better fit for running agent workloads. But to be honest, I'm not sure what I need out of that system yet. So it's like an open problem space right now, thinking about what would make a good agent extension for Tekton, and do we even need one? Is just a pod sufficient? Like in this case, we didn't need anything special from GitHub Actions. It was just a matter of having a place to run a process that runs the agent. So we'll see. That's all unclear in the future. I will say that like we have been thinking, and we're not doing anything right now special about it, but like we're collecting all of the artifacts of the agent run and storing them as GitHub artifacts associated with the run, so you can like audit, and so the retro agent can do its job and look through the history to figure out what to do. We would like to get to like a Konflux level of transparency about it so that these become signed artifacts, similar to the way that Chains is signing built artifacts in Konflux. We'd love to be able to sign attestations about what the agent did during its run and use those for policy checks later down the road. Maybe we introduce something around Conforma that is analyzing a code contribution that's claiming it's coming from an agent. And if it doesn't bear sufficient transparency metadata about how the agent produced that, then we would reject the commit in CI. Those are just ideas at the moment, though. I'd love to see them get closer to reality. Cool. With that, I'll stop screen share. Cool. I see there's some chat back and forth with Adam. I'll follow up with Adam on it later. Any other topics for the call? Any other questions on that? If not, we're close to the top of the hour. Okay, let's close it out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.